Right now, to start off the new year, let's bring an old friend in, and that is Arthur Schwartz, the food maven. Arthur joins us on a Monday morning here on Vinegar Radio. We talk all about food. Good morning, Arthur, and Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year to you. You gave me a really good laugh about the checks thing, and I thought about that a minute. You know what it is that we don't write that many checks anymore. Yeah. So we don't get into this real habit of writing the year on the check. So when you get a new year, it's not, you don't have to break an old habit to put in the new year. It's really horrible around here, I got to say. And it was supposed to snow about now, but it's not. And I was looking forward to having an excuse not to go out. But anyway.
I think it's going to stay just south of you.
No, it's south of us, yes. Yeah. Apparently the line is around Philadelphia, not here. I don't know what's going to happen here, but it's very cold. I don't care. So I have been playing around with cucumbers lately. A very underrated vegetable. There are so many things you can do with cucumbers. And what got me going on, let me say, on the diet, if you're on any diet, it doesn't matter what you're doing, calorie counting, Weight Watchers, keto, there are so many diets out there. Calories do count, and cucumbers have no calories to speak of. They're 95% water. By the way, closely related to cantaloupe, which is one of my keto fruits, because they're very low in carbohydrates, but cucumbers have nothing. And so you can eat them forever. One cucumber, I make various cucumber salads, which I'll get to in a minute. But what got me really going was this young Singaporean Chinese woman who lives upstairs from me made me what I thought at the time was Asian cucumber salad. It ends up, it was one of her fusion things, the way she did it and served it to me, at least the first time she made it. She's made it more than once because I've requested it. It's called smashed Chinese cucumbers, which is in fact a very standard Chinese thing. You cut the cucumber in half lengthwise, cut it into sections. I don't know. I think Joanne told me 3-inch sections, which sounded about right. And then you put the section underneath your big knife, or if you're Chinese, your Chinese cleaver, and you smash it down. And a lot of the seeds will pop out if they are ever good. They say they come out. They don't always come out. But the point is you're making it receptive to some dressing. And the and there are Chinese smashed cucumber recipes that call for you salting them, and forget it. Too much trouble, and in the end, it's just water anyway. So but I dress mine I dress mine close to the eating time. If you dress them way ahead of time, you will end up with more liquid in there than you probably want. But I eat them pretty close to dressing time. So the dressing is what I learned 50 years ago from a Chinese cooking teacher. She always called it 3-2-1 dressing. So this is Joanne's formula: 3 parts vinegar. I'll get to the vinegar in a moment. Not any vinegar will do. 2 parts soy sauce, and 1 part sesame oil. So if you're doing tablespoons, let's say 1 of those English cucumbers, 1 recipe of this is enough. If you're making more, you're going to need more. So the vinegar is very important. Obviously, it's 3 parts vinegar to 2 parts to 1 part. The vinegar should, in perfection, be Chinese black vinegar, which I may be pronouncing this wrong, and I probably am. Is called Chin Kiang. And because there are several kinds of Chinese black vinegar, you want the one, it's the most common one. If you go to a store that sells these things, which is a problem, it'll be called Chinese black vinegar Chin Kiang. I think there are commercial brands that just called Chinese black vinegar. I'm sure I've seen that. Meantime, I can't find it in my neighborhood, and I don't want to go right now in the height of COVID anxiety. I'm not going to the Chinese market, where I know I'll get this very cheap. But so I made a substitute, which I read online. I haven't called Joanne to ask her what her opinion is of this substitute, but since it tasted good, I'm going to do it again, which is if I'm doing 3 tablespoons of vinegar, 1 tablespoon of balsamic vinegar, your commercial from the supermarket balsamic vinegar, which is sort of sweet, and then 2 parts of either white distilled vinegar. That's what everybody has because we use it to clean the house as well. But if you have it, a rice wine vinegar would be nice too. So 2 tablespoons of the white vinegar, 1 tablespoon of balsamic, and then you do your 2 tablespoons of soy sauce. I use full-strength soy sauce, but if you want to use light soy sauce, that's fine. You may want to add a pinch of salt in the end so I don't get the point of making it light soy sauce. And then, Joanne adds a pinch or 2 of sugar, but if you're using balsamic vinegar, at least I found there was no sugar needed. The balsamic added enough sweetness. And that's it. So you pour that on top of your smashed cucumbers, and then you can garnish it in one of several ways. One way, which I love, is fried garlic. Slice up thin as much garlic as you like, as you have patience to slice, and then fry it in plain old, vegetable oil until it gets crisp. Not an Italian way, but very much a Chinese way. And you put those, or I should say Southeast Asian way, more than Chinese even. And you garnish it with the fried garlic. The other way is something, this is Joanne's fusion idea. She puts on a Middle Eastern spice mixture called dukkha. There are a lot of ways to spell dukkha. I like to spell it D-U-K-A, but I've seen it with Q's, and I think it depends on the Arabic you're speaking. In Egypt, it's one thing. In Lebanon, it's dukkha. I don't know. I call it dukkha. And what it is in this case anyway, because there are variations on this, of course. I'm following Joanne's instruction. Coriander seed, cumin seed, white sesame seed, and black sesame seed. And you put those in a skillet. Now, I'm going to use a half a teaspoon of each for a cucumber. For one big cucumber, or even more, is probably enough, because after all, you're putting in 4 items here. You're going to end up with 2 teaspoons. And then you're going to add nuts. So at least it doesn't pay to do less. Half a teaspoon of coriander, half teaspoon of cumin, half teaspoon of white sesame, half teaspoon of black sesame, in a skillet over medium-high heat, just for literally 1 or 2 minutes. You will start smelling spices, and then you take it off. If you see that the white sesame seeds are starting to color, take it off the heat. You don't want them to burn. You don't want anything to burn here. Then you put in some chopped peanuts. Now, if you don't have peanuts, which I don't usually have, you can use other nuts. Hazelnuts are wonderful in this, chopped up fine. Almonds are perfect, chopped up fine. I have a lot of cashews at the moment, so I'm tempted to put some cashews on. But anyway, some chopped nuts. And you put that on top of your cucumbers. Is that good? What do you eat this with? Anything. It's particularly good, I think, as a side dish for fish, fried fish, steamed fish. But really, cucumbers sort of go with anything, I think. But I laugh to myself right now because I called my friend Iris in Rome this morning to ask for inspiration for cucumbers. Not that I'm going to run out of recipes here. But she said, Arthur, we don't eat cucumbers in Rome. Italians do not eat cucumbers. Maybe I said to her, maybe up north they do. Because my family, which is from the border, what is now the border of Italy and Slovenia. We made cucumber salad as a kid. My grandmother she always called it Hungarian cucumber salad, and it very may well be. And if you look online, you'll find that Hungarians make a lot of cucumber salad, and they all make it a little different. But my grandmother made it, and I do the same. I use my mandolin, which is a very handy gadget to have. I just looked this up this morning. You can buy a really good mandolin these days for $30 or $40. There's even one on Amazon Prime that they'll deliver to you tomorrow for, I think, $30. I have an old-fashioned, what's called it's a brand name, Ben Reiner, which is a Japanese mandolin. And I had a laugh when I went online and looked up the Ben Reiner. It ends up old style, so maybe they don't make this anymore. I don't know. I have a couple of them. It's fabulous for making small jobs of cutting things very, very thin. So I cut my cucumber. Now, if you're using there are three basic kinds of cucumbers out there right now. There's your normal, four. There's your normal cucumber, salad cucumber. There's what are alternately called English cucumbers or burpless cucumbers or seedless cucumbers. Those are the ones that can be like a foot long or even longer, and they have seeds. They lie when they say they're seedless, but they're very soft seeds, so nobody apparently minds eating them. And then there's something nowadays you can easily get Persian cucumbers, which I see are also called mini cucumbers. Americans love anything mini, but they're also called Persian cucumbers. And I always thought of them, to be honest, as Israeli cucumbers because they have the same kind of cucumber in Israel, and they make pickles out of them in Israel. Don't love those pickles. I like our pickles, which are made with what are called Kirby cucumbers. Now, I sometimes buy Kirby's and put them in salad when they look good. And also, Kirby's are usually not waxed, whereas your regular salad cucumbers are heavily waxed, and also they have a very heavy skin. So I always peel my salad cucumbers. I don't peel the English cucumbers. They have or burpless, whatever you're calling them, they have very thin skins, and they're never waxed, which is why they're sold usually wrapped in plastic, very tightly wrapped in plastic. They don't last forever in the plastic, by the way. They still have to be used within a week or so. The same with the little Persians, which I don't find that appealing. So I'm tending these days to buy mainly these English thin-skinned cucumbers, and I like the skin. So I cut that in half. Let's say if I'm using one of those big ones, and I don't even need to use the finger guard because it's so long. And I slice the cucumber on my mandolin pretty thin. Put that in a bowl with an onion. Now for a whole English cucumber, you don't need more than a small onion. And by the way, the big onions don't fit on my mandolin anyway. So you could have, if you have a small sweet onion, that's very good. I don't use red onion for this because my grandmother didn't. So, but I could use a sweet onion. And then you make a fine slices of onion, put that in the bowl, and top this with, you can use white distilled vinegar, your normal Heinz vinegar, or whatever brand you buy. Half vinegar and half water, and submerge your cucumber and onion in the water-vinegar combination. My grandmother always added a spoonful of sugar, and I don't these days, but it definitely can benefit sometimes depends on the onion really, from a spoonful of sugar. And again, I laughed to myself when my grandmother was diagnosed with diabetes. She started using sweet and low instead of sugar, and that was awful. And I remember my father requesting from his mother, if you're going to make me cucumber salad, please leave out the sweet and low. And I guess I probably got into the habit of not having it sugared in any case. There are recipes for Hungarian cucumber salad that called for paprika, but my grandmother never put paprika in. But we eat that a lot around here. The other thing we eat a lot around, because on the diet we're on, we can eat fat. In fact, fat is encouraged. I eat sliced cucumbers with sour cream and dill, and sometimes I even grate in a small clove of garlic, salt and pepper. Delicious. The other cucumber salad I make pretty frequently is some form of cucumber with yogurt. And dried mint is something I always keep in the house, not fresh mint, but dried mint, when you're making Middle Eastern food, has a particular flavor that you want, whereas, it doesn't always work in other cuisines, but as Middle Easterners use a lot of dried spearmint, by the way. It's spearmint, in case you want to dry your own mint. And it's wonderful because it really keeps a long time, keep it in a tight jar, and it's wonderful with yogurt, garlic. You can chop the garlic or grate the garlic. The cucumber can either be in slices or grated, in which case sometimes I take the seeds out. You take a tip of a teaspoon and you just go along the middle and you get out the seeds. And then grate it. Now, I take out the seeds. It is watery, and it does thin out the whole deal. And I don't really want to salt it because that's too much trouble, and it's also too much salt. So I add salt, of course, and pepper. But yogurt, garlic, dried mint, wonderful. So that's very underrated vegetable, cucumbers. I mean, we eat them as a vegetable, not just in a... And by the way, I still love... now that we get Campari tomatoes from Mexico, which in fact my last couple of boxes of them have been better than the tomatoes I was getting from local sources, I do make a cucumber... we love chopped salad. Cucumber, tomato, and scallions. And salt and pepper, sometimes with oil, sometimes with not. Depends on what we're eating it with. Sometimes just a chopped salad. Dill is wonderful there. Parsley is wonderful. Parsley and cucumbers are a great combination. In fact, cucumbers, I find, are a great vehicle for all kinds of herbs. So if you have an herb garden, mix up some yogurt and sour cream, or actually you can mix the two together. It's sort of ranch dressing style. You could even add some mayonnaise, and cucumbers and parsley, or whatever herb you have copious amounts of.
I chop up cucumbers with some shallots, then with some feta cheese, and then with some garbanzo beans.
Well, I have to leave out the beans, but I'll have the rest. I mean, cucumber and feta, another great combination. By the way, I've spent some time in the Middle East, and one of the things they sell on the street in Turkey, and I bet you in Greece too, although I never saw it in Greece, is cucumbers. You eat them just like that with a little salt, and it's rehydrating. Cucumber's 95% water, so in these hot climates in the summer, that's just a refreshing thing to eat on the street. But my other underrated vegetable has to be celery. In fact, in my book, What to Cook When You Think There's Nothing in the House to Eat, I talk about, celery is, I always have to have celery because, a very standard thing is sofrito, battuta, or mirepoix. In many cuisines, the combination of celery, carrot, and onion is the base for many, many things. So I do keep celery in the house, but then, it does, and you buy the celery to cook something, and then you have all this other celery. So in that book, What to Cook, I have a recipe for withered celery soup. And somebody recently told me it's their favorite recipe in the book, which I have to laugh at, and I just looked at it this morning. And it really, I'm remembering now, I really like this in its day. And you basically it's just celery and butter. And if you have broth, you can use broth. As I point out in the book, water is great in this recipe because it really brings out the flavor of the celery. and you boil it. That's it, with rice. And it's delicious, and you eat it with a lot of grated Parmesan cheese. So what could be bad? It's rice and celery and cheese. And if you want to make it really thick, like Chinese would eat congee kind of thing, you can do that. But if you just want it to be brothy, don't put so much rice in it. It's very good. That's one celery soup. But I make several celery soups, and one I was looking for the recipe this morning because I thought, oh, maybe I'll do this. But then I had second thoughts about it because this is a recipe that I first had in a super elegant contemporary Neapolitan restaurant at a winery in Avellino, which is outside of Naples. It's one of the provinces of Campania. And the winery, which now I'm seeing I can buy the wine in New York, which I didn't used to be able to, is Feudi, F-E-U-D-I, Feudi di San Gregorio. And they have a restaurant at the winery with a panoramic view of the countryside and serving only local ingredients. Now, celery is not something that Italians gravitate to except to use a stalk or two here and there and this and that. It's rare that you will see a dish with prominently celery, but this was a cream of celery soup, silky, silky smooth, even though celery is a very fibrous vegetable. And I'll tell you the secret in a sec. But the garnish, the soup was more about the garnish than it was about the soup. Floating on top of this thick celery soup, really celery leek and potato, like a French leek and potato soup, but made with celery as well, was a sfogliatella, which is the Neapolitan breakfast pastry, but in this case, not a breakfast pastry. In this case, a very miniaturized sfogliatella filled with minced pork, and who knows what seasoning, who remembers. I looked at my notes this morning, and I didn't have the note on the seasoning. It was more the whole idea of floating a sfogliatella, which is with this crispy, flaked pastry filled with pork on top of a celery soup. Well, after that, traveling around the south of Italy, I found it was a thing. This cream of celery soup had become a trendy thing. And I had it garnished with various other things, things other than sfogliatella, which were much easier. For instance, some crisped up pancetta diced on top, or prosciutto even, or croutons even on top, depending. So, and of course, the croutons were always flavored with something. But the soup is very easy to make. I mean, you saute a leek or two in olive oil, because this is the south of Italy, not butter. And then you add your celery and stir it around a while, and a potato peeled and chunked up. And you cover the whole thing with water, and you cook it until the vegetables are super tender. And then you puree it, and it still won't be smooth enough. So then, if you're really making an elegant soup, you have to push it through a fine strainer, except that it doesn't go through very well. I've done this. What you have to do is be patient. You put it in your fine strainer, and every few minutes come back and with a rubber spatula sort of scoop up what's settled to the bottom near the strain part, and it'll keep draining. And, eventually you'll get this super silky celery soup. You say that 5 times. Super silky, I can't even say it once. Anyway, you're not going to make that, but you could make it anyway and have it as a less silky soup because it's delicious any which way. And if you want to garnish it very simply, I would do nothing but put a drizzle of your absolutely best olive oil on top and some freshly ground pepper. Uh-huh. Now I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too.
Yeah, but I am going to make the one. So I called Iris for inspiration about cucumbers this morning, but instead she gave me inspiration about something else because the thought of cucumbers made her think of zucchini, which do look alike. And I have sent Bob out to buy one or the other, and he came home with the wrong one. I don't send them out for that anymore. But last night I cooked some zucchini for dinner, and I diced it up, and I just tasted a piece to see, what was this like. It's already January. It was so delicious that I ate a number of pieces of raw zucchini, and it was something I don't usually eat raw. And this morning, Iris reminded me, when she couldn't think of a cucumber recipe, she told me about this. Now, she hasn't made this yet either, but our mutual friend, Anne, who also lives in Rome, has a restaurant in her neighborhood, which is Trastevere, where they're making this. They make super thin slices of zucchini on slicing it on the mandolin, and the long way, and then dress it just with the best olive oil, vinegar, and scales, they say in Italian, scaglie, shavings of Parmigiano Reggiano. Now, I would actually like that better, I think, if I dressed it with, I have some great olive oil in the house today. Somebody gave it to me as a New Year's gift. Olive oil and lemon juice. So I sort of like the gentleness of lemon juice. I do have great vinegar in the house, so I'm going to play with this. Maybe next week I'll tell you which one worked out better. But I have two more of the same zucchini that I couldn't keep my hands off last night. So I'm going to do that with them today.
Experiment.
Well, what could be bad?
That's right. Nothing.
It's not really an experiment. I think it's just going to be something new to do. I don't know where I buy vegetables these days at my butcher, my very reliable meat man, except that he also sells vegetables. He's an Italian guy. He can't have meat without the vegetables. And he sells a lot of good things, like better than I can buy at the produce market, including, and at better prices too, including, I don't know where he's getting them, zucchini. And they're small zucchini. They're really sweet. I bought a package of 4 the other day, and we had 2 last night, and today we're going to eat them the other way. Red peppers, $2 a pound for red peppers, and they're really good sweet red peppers from Mexico. I'm very happy with our trade agreements. Our trade agreements have allowed me to eat things in the winter that I could never eat before, but be careful that they're coming from Mexico in the winter and not from Canada, where they're, I guess things can be okay from a greenhouse. And by the way, a lot of even the Mexican stuff is grown in greenhouses. But after all, I read yesterday, this is interesting, I guess this was in the Times, all the effects of climate change on various, in various places around the world. And one of them was they're developing new varieties of this, that, and the other thing because of climate change. And, like we know about wine now, that there's great wine growing going on in England where they never could grow wine well before because of climate change. And they're growing new varieties of vegetables that can grow in warmer climates and less warm climates. So no snow today, speaking of warm climates.
Okay.
It's 30 degrees, though. So I'm going to eat raw zucchini today. We have a steak to cook.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. And I'm back after 10 days. I didn't weigh myself all through the holidays. I didn't want to know. But so after 10 days of strong indulgence, we're back on it.
Right.
Everybody's back on a diet today, right? No matter what diet they go on.
Absolutely.
Everybody's got to lose their average of 7 pounds gained over the holidays. That is the national average. At least it used to be. I suspect during COVID it's a little higher.
Yeah. All right,
All right, my friends. Everybody have a happy and try to be healthy New Year.
And we'll speak to you next week. Thanks, Arthur.
Bye.
Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven, and of course you can find Arthur on the web at our own website, Arthur Schwartz, the Food Maven, at robinhoodradio.com on the web. And you'll find him here live every Monday morning and rebroadcast during the week and on the weekends as well.